you. So please do ask any questions you've got. So 5 areas. What we're going to do, Alan's going to cover the first 2 areas. So what's good engagement look like? Why is it an issue? And then I'm going to cover some good examples or some great examples of how people are covering this off well, some things you can do to start yourself along that journey, or to get yourself further along that journey. And then, as I say, we'll have a roundup Q&A. So with that, I'd like to pass over to Alan. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Steve. That's great. So as I say, I'm Alan Reed. I've been working with membership organizations for something like 25 years, which is why I'm so old and gnarly looking. And I've been working with individual-based memberships and organization-based memberships for all of that time. I've done a lot of work on how to help those organizations prove their value to their members, and kind of fill the bucket up with new members and fill up the holes so that existing members are not leaking out all of the time. So let me just carry on through some key points. So first of all, it would be great to talk about some terms really briefly, make sure we're on the same page. So member engagement, everybody talks about member engagement. I just want to make sure that we're clear that there's a traditional participation, which is things like events and courses, CPD, transactions online, etc. But also these days, digital engagement, which is things like people downloading your content, visiting the website, clicking through on your emails to read articles, that kind of thing. And unless you're treating all of it as engagement, then there's a chance a lot of it is leaking away from you, and your data is just going down the drain. Then there's scoring of engagement. Likewise, with all of those different touch points and channels, the scoring these days has got to be over all of that and give you some insight into all of it, so that you're able then to make decisions about where you need to respond and take action. And then, of course, there's a new wave over the last 5 or 6 years, particularly, of member engagement tools. So those are tools that are available to you that, first of all, tracks what's going on. You know, the cliche now that salespeople trot out is, if it moves, track it. So every whisper of interaction should be logged and available to you. And then allowing you to respond to that. So the tracking might show that this group here hasn't responded and hasn't done anything in 3 months, but they're going to renew supposedly in a further month. So let's do something with that group. That's what the engagement tools should allow you to do. Get the insight and then respond to it. We also see that there are a great number of trends affecting member engagement. First of all, the economy, and you know, there seems to be a little bit of a chilly wind blowing through the economy at the moment. What we're seeing typically in the membership world is that it's a mixed bag. Quite often, individual-based membership organizations do quite well in a struggling economy, because people want to get their CPD up to date, they want to get their qualifications up to date, they want to make sure that they're the good candidate. So it can work well that way. On the other hand, if you have corporate membership, B2B organizations can struggle more. So that's where being able to respond to your gaps is a big area. Demographics is a big factor affecting engagement and types of engagement. So younger people might respond in one way. People at different stages of their career will respond in a different way. And then there's simply a recognition that if you're not responding to the fact that mobile is becoming one of the most common ways of getting access to data and getting access to your services, then you're losing out and people will tend to leave you behind. What we're seeing now, for instance, is that mobile has overtaken desktop when it comes to engaging with membership organizations, and where people consume your content. So that's got to be a big part of your thinking when it comes to engagement. So we've done a survey, and we talked to, we had 87 membership bodies that responded to the survey. We were asking them about their goals and how it fitted into member engagement, retention and recruitment. So first of all, the top 3 goals have been the same goals actually for the last 30 years of working in the sector. and even before I was working in the sector, pretty unremarkable goals. The challenges are becoming a little bit more sophisticated now. People are recognizing that measurement is one of the keys to success in the sector, and if you can't measure, then you can't respond. A lot of your energy might be being wasted. The inability to respond to different groups depending on their circumstances and whether they're good responsive members or they're ignoring you is another big challenge that staff members report. And then there's the classic ever-present disconnected systems and data, meaning it's very difficult for you to get that overview. So something else that came out very strongly in the survey is that only a minority of the organizations we spoke to have what they would call a formal engagement plan. And by a formal engagement plan, that would mean that staff members have the time and the capacity and some aspect of the tools available to them to think ahead of what kind of engagement they're looking for, how they're going to find out if they have that engagement or not, and to respond where they don't have that engagement. So a terrible number of organizations are doing it by gut feel. A minority have formal engagement plans that are staffed and resourced. What we found, though, is that of that minority that did have an engagement plan, the benefits were very significant. So that they responded that they felt it was having a huge effect on their retention, having a really significant effect on their event attendance, and people coming to the website and consuming content. So fairly obvious insights from that. First of all, if you do have an engagement plan and you are doing engagement management and active scoring, it can reap big benefits. Some of the things that the organizations are doing don't actually cost any money to do and don't need hugely sophisticated systems to do. It's just putting your effort in the right place. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. We did get a lot of feedback saying it's really tough to have member scoring and insight and to be able to respond to people in different situations to get the best out of their engagement. It's not easy to do. What the most common blockers to success were poor integration between your systems, data, bits of bodies all over the place, as someone described it, bits of our members and bits of their engagement. So bits of their engagement might be in the campaign email system, bits of their engagement might be in the CPD system or events system. And so it's incredibly difficult to get that overview. And then, of course, very difficult to measure and to bring scoring and reporting into that. What we also have tried to encourage people to understand, and we get a lot of feedback about this, is that there are different types of engagement measures and scoring that people need to be clear about. First of all, there's the traditional transactional measures, quantitative, what they've done, the benefits they've consumed, what have they clicked through, what have they taken part in. Often that's just a record of what you've sent them. This is one of the big gaps that a lot of organizations have. Yes, we've sent them all of this stuff, therefore we're going to count that as engagement. And the reality, as we all know, as soon as you hear that kind of statement, is many communications were filtered out years ago and people are just not getting it or they're ignoring it. They feel like, it's not interesting, so it shouldn't really count as much by way of engagement. So there's the transactional measures, quantitative, but actually what we found to be equally important is the qualitative stuff. So this is about how people feel about the quality of the content they're receiving, how they feel about the benefits. And very often the keywords here are quality and relevance of content that drives the sentimental value of engagement. And the key thing that comes across is that the value that members place on the engagement that they're getting from their membership organizations is actually made up equally of both, that they need to be able to see that there are benefits there and there is content there and that there's outward approaches to them. But they also have to see that it's relevant, personal, targeted, and high value and interesting content. And the sum of both of those things makes up the value of the engagement that they get. So why is it such a struggle, and why is it still a struggle decades later? Well, partly, of course, it's now more sophisticated than it's ever been. There are more touch points, there are more channels than there ever have been before. Partly as well, we're all modern digital consumers, so we're expecting more from our membership body. The days of getting a card once a year and a bill are long gone, and thinking that was good. So the current reality of business areas and systems for most membership organizations is that because membership bodies can be very complex and offer lots of verticals of functionality, a lot of those things can be relatively disconnected, if not in systems terms, although it often is in systems terms, quite often culturally within the organization, where people are not sharing what they've got. So disconnected views of the data. What that ends up with is that on the left-hand side is the ideal smiley person view of all of the information that you should have at your fingertips for measuring engagement, for measuring take-up of your communications, surveying people for sentiment of how they feel about it, and getting feedback through click-throughs and take-up, etc. That's the enabling scoring and giving you something that you can get your teeth into and respond to maintain membership and retention. On the right-hand side, the majority of our survey respondents find themselves in the less smiley version, where they don't either, the data is not available to them in their scoring and tracking and communication systems, or if it is, they can't get hold of it in a reasonable way, which means it might as well not be there when it comes to targeting groups of members for particular action dependent on their scoring with you. So how do we get here as a membership sector? Essentially, way back in the day, it used to be that membership was simply a case of who's in and who's out, and who's paid and who hasn't paid. And that the good old days aren't even that long ago, going back to 2000 or so. Then up to 2015 or so, we still had organizations running with lots of separate systems. So a separate event system or a separate email system or a separate system that disconnected on the website, not talking to the back office very much, and therefore relatively poor data. These days, what organizations are aiming for, and a significant number have achieved, is personalized, targeted communications, leading to better take-up, leading to better data, leading to more personalization. The problem that we've got is that too many nonprofits are still stuck in this position, where you've got the basic transactional stuff working, but even the data you are capturing is not made available to your colleagues for adequate scoring and engagement. So I thought it would be helpful to talk about a real world situation. This is for me personally. I joined 2 membership organizations this year. And I wasn't going to name them actually, but I'll name the good one, which is the RSA. So I joined the RSA in January, Royal Society of Arts, and I joined another organization in late January, which I won't name. So what happened? So for both of them, coming out of Christmas, I joined online, not too dissimilar at the beginning. There was an initial capture of interest, the same way you would expect when you join Reddit or any other channel where you're being asked what you're interested in. Thanks and welcome from both organizations. And then actually what happened with the RSA is I got a good introduction to relevant content based on what I told them I was interested in. And I actually got a phone call from them, which is slightly startling, and an email to get involved in their events, to welcome me to fellowship, and to tell me what was going on. So as a result of that phone call, I clicked through to refine and update my profile and interests more. So I was quite impressed with this. So this was somebody who actually sat and typed it, or changed the bits because it was in response to the phone call, and then it was. We'd like you to invite you to our next event for new people coming into membership. We want to treat new people coming into membership slightly differently and tell you what's available to you. And we want to make sure that you're getting the most out of it. So I was quite impressed with that. So impressed, but I didn't do much with it. I was very busy or lazy or whatever I was. So then in February, I got some e-shots of relevant content, further invitations to get involved, and then I got a second phone call saying, "Am I aware of the benefits I paid for?" That was a 3 or 4 minute conversation. I said, "Yeah, all good, thank you very much." I basically got the newsletter that for me looked like it was the same newsletter to everyone. I didn't respond to that at all. So for the RSA, I got this. Really good events, and then I got this saying we've got a fellowship and community. Come and put your own profile online so that people can talk to you, and then you can start connecting with people that have similar interests to you. Click to get started. So that was all very good. I didn't actually do it, but I knew it was there. So then through March, I got personal things from the RSA. I did an event with them. I just got the newsletter from the Less Good organization. And so it went through April and September. The key point for me was the likelihood of renewing was really high for the RSA. The likelihood of renewing the other one, I'm not going to renew. And I wanted to say that I made that decision about the RSA back in January, February time. And I made that decision about renewing because their onboarding process was so thorough and so personal. And even though I was too busy or lazy to take up most of their benefits, they did a really good job of making sure I knew they were there, and it was down to me whether I wanted to do them or not. And when I have more time, I'll do them. So the simple reality then out of all of that is that engagement scoring for membership bodies is really different from other relationship types. For commercial organizations, even charities, membership bodies are just different. The relationships are more complex. There are transactional elements, there are career development elements, there are fellowship and community elements. There are just so many more touch points where people could be engaging with you or not engaging with you, and getting an overview of that and having control of that is really tough. And it's harder to prove value because of these different soft and hard factors about the relationship. So it's worth recognizing that these kind of relationships are difficult and different to measure, but of course you can't just give up. So what we've then recognized from that is that to demonstrate value, you must bring together these elements here: the software and the systems, the data and the reporting, the business processes that you use to run your own organization, and then the member experience. In other words, that's everything you do. I know there's an awful lot there, but all of these things contribute to your member experience and your engagement scoring and your value and retention from that. So where do you get started? What can you do from where you are now? So essentially, that's one of the most common questions that software organizations and consultants like myself get asked. Where do I even start all of that? So one of the things that's interesting is that Smart Impact have created a self-help resource to help membership organizations understand where they are at the moment, where they stand in these different areas, and what you would do next, depending on whether you have budget or don't have budget, and where your problems lie. So actually, what that is something called a membership health check. It's a 5-minute AI-driven website page that asks you some really smart questions and then gives you a personalized report on screen that tells you, based on your questions, where you are in your membership health, and where you need to take action, and where's the best place for you to respond. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drop that a link into the chat, and it essentially I'm going to invite people.
I'm just doing that now, Alan, for you.
All right, fantastic, thank you. So what we'll do is we're just going to drop the link there into the chat. And could we invite people, please, to click through on the link and then spend the next 3 or 4 minutes just responding, putting in your own situation. It's all personal to you. And then what you'll see there is that you will then get insight into whether you need to spend your time in this area, or this area, and where you are in terms of having the tool set available to you to do any kind of scoring and member engagement. So we'll just let people do that for a couple of minutes.
Right, so everyone can see that. So I'm going to pick up on some of Alan's points and examples, and we're going to run through the journey to get there and how you can move into this area or progress along this area. So very quick summary. The key things to do is engage well with your members, but relevant content, right time, right channel. Looking for feedback. So you want as much engagement as possible, which is 2 directions. And also baseline. Measure where you are now and keep measuring over time so that you can know whether it's getting better or worse. Too many organizations that do get into this area don't baseline. So take away 1, do baselines before you start and regularly review it. So one of the tools that we have is called Smart Engagement. It sits within our membership suite of products. And what that does very simply, it does it in a quite complicated, or it's quite a complicated tool, but its task is to measure engagement over various channels. So you decide what you want to measure over which communications channels, you give it scores, and it then comes back with a variety of different display methods that say, this guy's engaged, this lady isn't so engaged, the trend's going up, the trend's going down, and so on, over the various channels that you decide. So it can be a powerful tool, and we'll see how that plugs into enabling you to take action in a minute. So the steps that this enable you to go through is, we're going to run through these in a minute, but I'll pick out each one as we come to them. But it's getting data, classifying the members, engaging well, and then having tasks, journeys that take you through that engagement process. So the first step is always with these conversations, get the data into a place where you can analyze it simply, and that's essentially not across a whole load of silos. So to use Alan's previous example, awful lot of organizations evolve systems department by department. Some of them are engaged, and some of them are integrated, many aren't. So you've got data spread. Our first job as systems rationalizers in membership is to take what's good and connect to them. So this doesn't mean replace them. It means maybe put some new core systems in, but integrate to all of the other existing legacy systems you've got. But the key for this is that it means that your data, your processes, and your reporting and analysis can be easily directed from one place. So you can find out information about someone and take action about what you want to do with them easily. So it's rationalization of systems and integration is first. The next is to start to classify these, and we've got a very simple version here, but what this graph's showing is that you're measuring value. Now, value can be monetary spend, or it could actually be just how much value that organization has to you in terms of the other activities they do for you, or the importance of their being ambassadors for your brand and so on. But the key thing is here, what we're trying to show is if we take monetary value, you can track in the blue bars the actual spend, and in the lighter bar you can track their strategic value, i.e. their potential spend. So we're looking at share of wallet, and what this is quite clearly showing is that there's blocks of organizations that spend a lot right through to those that spend little, and superimposed behind that there are those that spend pretty much as they can do. You've got a biggest share of wallet, and these are the most valuable members. And then you've got those that spend quite a lot, but there's a lot of growth potential as well. And these would be the most growable members. And then you get through to tier 3, tier 4, as many tiers as you want. But then you've got these below zeros, which essentially they're not spending much at all. And if they spent everything they possibly could through your analysis, that tells you that they're still going to spend less than it costs you to service them. So you would want to treat these different categories differently. For the most valuable members, you want to keep them. You want to keep them happy, keep them spending. For the most growable, you obviously want to grow them. You want to fill this gap and turn them into most valuable members. And these below zeros, you might want to drop them, which doesn't mean you just ignore them or are horrible to them, but it might mean that essentially you want to give them incentives to to leave, or to potentially to join your competitors, because they can then service them for no value. So that's essentially a very simple idea, or a very simple scenario of where you'd segment and how you'd want to treat different parts of the segmentation differently. So moving on, how do we then, once we've shown the different classifications and engagement scores, how do we show them? So this is a screen within our dynamic system. It's our smart membership system with some smart engagement overlays. And you can see here, it shows an overall engagement score for this Adam Jackson member. And it shows you these pretty much half and half engaged. But you can see over here, we've got traffic lights. So the system allows you to choose what you want to specifically measure and what grading you give to those. So these are things like, what's their spend? Well, their spend's actually, for this guy, in range of what you'd expect him to spend. When did he last interact with you? Well, that's orange, so it's some time ago. How long since he visited your website? Well, that's a long time, because that's red. And when did he last come to some exams or training or do some CPD? Well, that's green. So you can very quickly measure and see at a glance different things. And what that does for your staff who's looking at this record and might be calling the guy may have called in, or you might going to be emailing him, you can see where his engagement is and maybe change your behavior to say, why don't you go to the website? Here's some very relevant stuff that's good for you. Or I noticed that you haven't been to some of our events recently. Why don't you come to this one? It's directly relevant. So it enables you to change your staff's behavior or your marketing automation behavior, because that can be triggered by this same technique. You've also got spend tracking. So you can see he's not spending as much as he should do, but you know that he's spending what you'd expect him to do, and you've got the spend analysis here. So you can do lots of different analysis and cutting of that data as you wish. So moving that on. So the last part of that is, once you've analyzed information as it is today, you can then start to take different action. You can do it manually, or you can set up marketing automation. There's a lot of tools around. This one's called Dynamics Marketing, which is part of the suite. But you set up different member journeys for all of the different classifications that you've got. So this one's a new member development journey. So it's essentially the welcome pack that Adam was talking about with the Royal Society of Arts. But you set up different member journeys for each person, for each classification you've got. And these can drive your communications through emails, through web portals, through phoning them up, through SMS, whatever you want. Dynamics marketing gives you a whole range of different comms channels that may suit different members differently. And that's important. Give them the channels they need. And the other point to make of these is that this is not a typical time box marketing campaign where you say, here's 100 first-year joiners, let's just send them some stuff and then stop. Because this has got a live segment, which is the Start When button, anyone who's scoring moves them into this journey, starts the journey from that moment at that speed that you define into this, because you can say, do this, then wait 3 days, then do this, then wait a month and do this, and so on. If they then do activities that takes them out of this qualification criteria, because they become an at-risk member or they become an ambassador for you, you can then move them directly out of this journey and it automatically moves them into other journeys. So you're getting them on accelerated paths or reaction and problem fixing paths. So these are very live journeys that people can move into, move out of, and the system can do that for you if you've got the system set up in the right way. So some quick examples of different joiners. It's so important to treat people differently. So first year joiners, embed them, do the things Alan talked about with RSA, learn what they are interested in, market what they're interested in back to them, get them to really use the benefits that you sell and you provide. So understand as much about them and fulfill them as much as possible. Year 2 and 3, yeah, more of the same if you can, but they've already renewed, which is good. You need to get that into a habit. Those that you think could be ambassadors, give them excellence, but also start marketing tools to them that they can give to their colleagues, their associates, their network, so that they become members of yours. Most growable members, they're the ones that we wanted to move to most valuable. So do more to get them to, you bought some of this, you bought some of this, why don't you buy some of this? And again, trying to increase wallet share. So, and carrying on. So possible leavers, this is important. If they were engaged and now aren't, or they've never been engaged, you're probably not going to renew. So check it out. And most importantly, those that were active but suddenly haven't done anything for a few months and are about to renew in, say, 3 months, get them onto an emergency turnaround. Do something you can early. Don't just ignore them and hope they'll renew. Get a campaign going that specifically targets them, to try to get them engaged, to recognize that you do have good benefits and to start to consume them. And you might find this is normal behavior for some organizations, for some people, or if they've definitely dropped off a cliff, do something about it. So what we're talking about is building a member journey map and then getting that managed so that you can start delivering it. You can do this manually, or you can get a system to do this for you. But essentially, it's taking them through these steps so that you've got the different stages, which you can call different categories of whatever you like. But who are they? What channels are they using? Where are they on the happiness curve? And whose responsibility is it to deal with them? And as I say, you can do this manually, but it's a lot of effort. So wouldn't it be better if you had a system that could do this for you all of the time? If you want to know more about this, on our website at that link at the bottom there, we've got about a 10-page document which takes us through the whole of engagement, good practice, what to do, how to measure it, and how to set it up. So please help yourself to download that. So a couple of more deeper thoughts. So remember I showed you the traffic lights on the screen earlier about money spend, events, websites, exams taken and so on. This is actually a standard marketing analysis, which is called RFV, which is recency, frequency and value, which came out of the direct mail market, but it's equally appropriate to e-commerce. And whether you think it or not, if you've got a website and you're marketing to members, you're in e-commerce. Whether you're selling something on your website or whether you're just trying to get engagement, that's e-commerce. So just very quickly through this, the idea of recency, frequency and value is looking at on a score of 1 to 5, of -5 to 5, when did they last interact with you, or when did they last buy or consume a benefit? Frequency is how often have they done that, how many times in the past, and value is what's their average spend with you. So this is a really good set of classifications that combined show you where you are in your relationship with that member and that member's value overall to you and what you need to do about it. So what you would want to do is track these over time and see whether the trends are going up or down, whether they're red and going down, whether they're green and going down, and so on and so on. So you want to make sure that you know what the trend is. And you also want to be able to use different activities to drive all of these towards green. So the scores go up, the color goes up, and the trend goes up, if you can drive it in that way. So what these values do is you can set up journeys like those marketing automation journeys I showed you in Dynamics Marketing earlier, to say, well, anyone that's got a frequency of 1 to -3, put them in this journey, and so on and so on. So you can start to trigger activity based upon your analysis of these people's actions, which smart engagement can give you. So again, you can do a lot of this tracking manually, but it's far better if you've got a system that tracks it for you and then can generate activity out of it. And another key takeaway of today is it's always about activity, calls to action, enabling your staff or your members to take action easily to change their RFV score, their engagement score. So how does that show in the system? Well, this is a similar screen to we had before, but you can see here, you've got the engagement score analysis, and then you can have a button, well, in fact, in this case, this is automatically marketing to the people based on their scores, but you can have buttons that appear on here if some of these scores are lower, and it just says, right, move them into a campaign, start them on this journey, get them more engaged because it looks like they're at risk of not renewing. And you can automatically drive that through these button presses. And then a very quick snapshot of where that takes us. Some different simplistic scenarios, but if you've got a recency issue, then if you know they're interested in these subjects but not these subjects, then target them, get them interested, get them to events they've been to before that take their learning a little bit further. Frequency, you will know whether they're buying or interacting monthly, 6 monthly, quarterly. So start to accelerate that. If it's quarterly, target them about a month before that next quarter end, so that they might start frequency every 2 months rather than every 3 months, and so on. If you've got recency and frequency, it's more a question around content or comms generally, how you're communicating with them and what you're showing them. And value, usually this will follow on from fixing these other areas. So there's a lot more to say. This is a huge subject, but we haven't got time to cover this today, but very happy to talk to any of you in detail if you want to contact me after. So once we've done that analysis, how do we communicate with them? So there are emails, web portal. We'll show some examples of these, but there's a whole load of different channels. But again, how many of you target people at face-to-face events? We're working with a couple of new customers who do this specifically, and it's something that they've launched a lot more after COVID, but they run a lot more face-to-face events now, and they specifically target either existing members or new to, likely to be members, but they take along crib sheets. So for existing members, and this is an example, it's not the association I'm talking about, but you can start to look at the benefit statement and the activities of that individual member to start being prepared to say, right, I'm going to target that guy, Alan, you target that person, someone else, you target that lady, so that you're prepared to engage them and then drive them along those channels that you want. So don't underestimate the value of face-to-face. Too many organizations did, and through COVID still do. There's a big advantage there that I'd encourage you to get to if you can do. But it's about the preparation. It's not just about a nice chat by the coffee. So different channels. Obviously, if you are someone that doesn't go to the website a lot, there's not a lot of point pushing through the website. So use email, use SMS, use a mobile app. But Bob, we know that you came to this event last time, you loved it, so there's a different one. Why don't you go further? But here's the call to action. Everything should have an easy to react to call to action. This is through a web portal. So we've got a lady here who's been a member for a long time, but you can see that it's saying, well, look, you're senior, you can go and become a fellow now. Why don't you just apply directly here? So again, here's a message, here's what to do about it. We're making it easy for you to engage member. Same screen, different member, different message on the panel, driving along my CPD. Again, click here to log more, click here to book some more events that'll earn me more. And then Alan, overdue change, overdue membership. So do it now, or just contact us to talk about what your membership's doing. So different messages through the web portal and so on. And again, don't underestimate the value of being able to call people. This has become so unfashionable, seen as not working, expensive and so on. But as Alan showed you with RSA, if your organization's got the time and the resource and the member is important enough to you, this individual member, call them. It's different. Most people don't now. It makes you stand out. And you can easily outsource this to good agencies who will do that calling for you again. But this is a system screen. The marketing automation journey have spotted that this is an at-risk member, and as part of that journey, it's created an activity for someone to call this person and slotted it into their diary. So the system's driving behavior. So third takeaway, don't underestimate calling, as well as the face-to-face we talked about at the events before. So what we want to do now is just a very quick survey. So here are the 3 questions, and we'll put the link into the chat. But if you'd just like to vote on that, we'll have a quick look at the results of. Okay, so what we're seeing out of the results of that is the majority is, and interesting, we get this a lot, the majority is in B. So it's good that there are relatively new systems, but struggling to make it work. And we see that a lot. And we should probably address that in a further webinar in the future, that it takes a long time for new systems to bed in, it seems, is the feedback we get here. The next, so that's 42%. The next category is that we've got systems that aren't working so well at all, and we probably need to replace them and hopefully go through B to straight A, but we're getting a good system that does the job, and that's 21%. So interesting spread, but I think most of you are struggling for the moment. So some practical advice. So we've got 7 slides here that basically take you through some quick takeaways. So if you do nothing else from today, then take Alan's scenario with the RSA and the unnamed association and go really strong on onboarding. Someone's joined you, so they're keen, or they've done it for a reason. Find out what it is. Really make sure that they embed, change their habit to make sure that they regularly just get used to engaging with you, because that's really what this is all about. It's making sure that they keep that enthusiasm up, and then it just becomes part of their normal habitual relationship with you. This can be really important to setting the tone, and if you start strong, you can keep that strength going a long time. So onboarding is key. Far too many organizations don't do it regularly, and they don't do it deep enough. So it doesn't have to be a big blast of that much stuff. It can be drip feed over a month period with a 3-month review, and so on and so on and so on. Next is tracking through and making it personalized. So make sure that yours don't come from membership, come from a person in your organization, so that it's a lot more one-to-one relationship. People react to that really well. Even if you've got a system sending it out, send it out from one of your staff with their contact details on it, but also learn at every engagement you can to try and get people to update their interests, learn what they're interested in, get more insight so you can start servicing that information to them. That's where the relevance comes in, because personalization is an overused term now. It's not just dear John or dear Alan or dear Steve. It's getting the right relevant information in the right channel at the right time to find out what suits them best in interests and in how they react. So next, drive them to use the benefits more and more and more. So a big issue is that a lot of people forget what you can do for them. And they'll go back to the same bits on the website and they'll look through the same bits in the various brochures or whatever that you send to them. But keep bringing to their attention new things that are related to those things that they've already engaged in and look keen on. So just keep reminding them there are more benefits, send them benefits consumption, show them what they could be using more of, and drive that as much as possible. And there are a whole range of different areas here, which I'm not going to go through right now, but obviously we're going to send out the recordings of this. You can look at these at your leisure and start to think which of these are going to be appropriate to you and good examples of those. So content. Content can be a whole range of different areas, but the cliche of content is king is true. You've got to have good, useful, relevant information, summary for those that want summary, detail for those that want detail, both so that people can get from one to the other. But again, it's about the relevance and the information you're spreading so that you start to get that recency and that frequency and therefore derive that value. Renewals, it might sound straightforward, but actually, very interesting report of last year saying a lot of lapsed members are simply because they just didn't get round to joining. Didn't get round to renewing. So it's not through lack of effort, it's just through, well, it's lack of effort on their side rather than the membership organisation side. So try to circumvent that. Try to get people onto direct debit or direct credit. Try to make it easy to renew, like that call to action button on the portal, or even better, just have them on automatic renewals unless they cancel. Some organizations are very happy with that. Some it doesn't suit, and some are just unhappy or scared of doing that. But a number of our customers have moved to that area, and they've found it's massively improved their retention rate, as well as massively decreasing their effort that they've got to put into it. So make it easy for people to renew, but also run campaigns. So not just emails just before, but run emails before, telephone campaigns before. If you see them at events, make sure you know who's going to be renewing soon, make sure they're happy, and so on and so on. So there's a whole range of different techniques you can get around renewals. But again, there's a whole range of different advice here that we can offer. And the second to last slide, corporate members. So the key thing here is making sure you're not dependent on the key member who runs all of the other guys in his organization or her organization. Then when that person leaves, you lose the membership. You may pick up a new membership from the organization that they join, but you lose all of the others. So the key is to engage with all of the contacts underneath. And that's where this marketing automation we've mentioned comes in again. Very powerful, but make sure that you know everyone that's in the organization that's a member. You're dealing with them as individuals, or even though they may be paid for by a key member. And again, make sure that those benefit statements go to the individuals, but also to the managing member, because if he's paying for their membership, he wants to know they're using it, and you can keep flagging to them, look, help drive their engagement, get them more involved. They're not using the best benefits. So moving on, and the other initiatives, there's a whole range here. So you can do a load of different activities, referral schemes, ambassador schemes, communities and forums, which are really useful. A number of our organizations have got threaded discussion forums. Some of them even monetize that. But you can do a whole range of different areas here which start to add value depending on what your market space is and what your member type is. So that's the end of my presentation. We'd be very happy to run some quick questions and answers there.
Yeah.
Alan, are there more in the chat? I haven't been able to look.
Yeah, no, there's quite a few questions, so we're going to have to be quick. Steve, I've dropped in a slide with the results from the health check survey that people did. Could you keep hold of it and just click forward?
Okay.
I've dropped in the responses that we've got. Just incredibly briefly, it's very much in line with the poll that you did, Steve. So it's broken out into 4 different areas of member experience, how your software and systems, data and quality, and efficient business processes. In all of those areas, over half of the respondents are struggling with the member experience, software and systems, data and quality. And there are some areas of investigation that are individually recommended for those organizations. In some cases, the member experience is not bad, but actually it seems like the organization is compensating from poor systems by having their staff work harder, almost pretending to be an integrated website by having the staff, running around sending emails and so on. So yes, a pretty poor situation when it comes to software systems and data supporting member engagement and scoring. So great. And then if we just move on to the next slide, we were talking about the Q&A. Essentially, I've only got time, I think, for one or two Q&A questions. I've got one Q&A question that came in saying, do I need to replace my website to do good data capture? And then a related question, let me try and do 2 in 1, which says, where is the best place to keep my member scoring data? Is it in the CRM or in the website? If you could tackle those briefly together, please.
Oh, you're asking me? Sorry, I thought you were going to answer. Okay. No. So I think, well, not knowing your website, I don't know whether you should replace it or not. But if you are able to do a lot more communication, driving messaging, tracking activity, dwell time, and so on, and bringing that into your CRM system, then it sounds like your website's good. If you can't do those things, or at very least track activity on it, even if you're not driving messaging back, then I would certainly think about either replacing the website or replacing the member portal part of that website so that it's fully integrated and driven by the CRM. And that really answers the second question. For us, and we do websites and we do CRM, it's always been clear CRM systems are there to capture data, analyze data, and drive automation with that data. All business processes should be in the CRM, not in your website, because if you spread it across different systems, you'll find it very difficult to be agile and change processes quickly. Needs to be in CRM because that CRM also links to your learning management system, your exam system, your discussion forums. So the rules have got to be in the CRM, not in your website, because it doesn't necessarily link to those other systems.
Fantastic. Thanks for tackling 2 in 1. And I think that's taken us to end of time, Steve. So
fine.
Thank
Okay. You. Good. So we've done the health check. We've shown you the survey results. Final thing is we've got more events. We run them roughly once a month. There are, well, there's one more due this year, which is it's more around charities, but we're publishing some more from January onwards. So watch this space. Hope that's been really useful to you. Any of you want to contact us, please do. We'd be delighted to talk about your specific situation. And I hope that's been of interest to you. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks a lot.